Hello, I wanted to do kind of a different style video today. If you are new, my name is Holly, and I just kind of wanted to chat with you guys about some of the way that I rate things and my favorite bookish things and how I find time to read as a teacher and just all that sort of stuff. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's dive into it. Let's start first with my preferred genres. So at this point, I feel like I read everything. Like I really do, I read everything. But my preferred genres would definitely be fantasy, sci-fi, and fiction. Like historical fiction, literary fiction, just a good story. I really like to treat my books like escapes, so it's not impossible for me to dive into like a present time realistic story, but I do prefer to just go into a different world or just have things happen that are so unlike anything that I've experienced. I also read a lot of thrillers, and I feel like I especially read a lot of thrillers in the summertime because they are just really quick reads for me. They're hard to put down and I can just fly through them, so they're great like holiday reads in my opinion. If you have been watching any of my videos, mainly my wrap-ups, or if you have read my reviews on Goodreads or Fable, you'll notice that I do like a rating system where I rate the book itself, so like out of 5 stars, the language and the spice. So when I rate a book, 5 stars is like, I'm gonna be thinking about this book forever. It was so good. I took something from it. It accomplished what it set out to do. It made me feel really emotional. Like it just, whatever it is, it did it perfectly. And of course it does change a little bit based on what genre I'm reading. Like for example, a thriller is probably not going to change my life in any way, but if it is like a perfectly paced thriller that really gets me with the twists and somehow emotionally connects with me, then it's gonna get 5 stars. Versus like a fantasy, I want to see really good world building and I want to have an emotional relationship with the characters and I want to feel like I'm there and for there to be high stakes and all that other stuff. So it does change a little bit by genre, but for the most part, 5 stars is like, this is part of me now. 4 stars is a really good book. Like I loved it, I enjoyed it, I would recommend it, and it just didn't like stand out amongst all of the good books that I read to make it a 5 star. It was just like really good. Maybe there's only 1 or 2 things that I would critique about it. 3 stars is like a good book. Baseline, average. I would recommend it, or maybe I can acknowledge that it's a really good book and it just wasn't for me personally. Like I didn't connect with it, but I can like see why people do love it and do connect with it. I'll give it 3 stars. 2 stars is this book was bad. Like I just did not either enjoy reading the book, or it had a terrible ending, or yeah, I just didn't like it. I wouldn't recommend it. I'm gonna try and never think about it again. 1 star. I don't know if I've ever given out a 1 star. I think I have. Very rarely do I give out 1 stars, because if I'm hating a book that much, I'm just gonna DNF it and not even finish reading it, because obviously it's not for me. But yeah, a 1 star is basically like, I should have DNF'd it. I hated this. This is terrible. Nobody should read this. Run away. My next rating scale is for the language. So I'm someone who I like to know going into it what I'm getting myself into, and language I know can be kind of just something that some people want to avoid reading. So my rating scale is none, which kind of self-explanatory. There is no cursing at all. Mild is what I consider like very few curse words, and they're the mild ones. So maybe it's just thrown in a couple times throughout the book. Not a big deal. That's mild. Moderate is maybe those minor swear words are used throughout the book, but they're just, you know, the ones that people don't consider as big of a deal. Or if it does have the big ones, you know, very rarely. And it's just kind of, you know, so that is moderate. Foul is like rated R language. Like it is using everything all the way through. It's, you know, just be ready for it because that is there. And so that's kind of the way I think of it would be kind of like movie ratings. So there's G, PG, PG-13, and R. So that's kind of what I've done in my head. I hope that makes sense because it makes sense to me. And I also rate the spice level because, again, that is something that some people want to avoid. I do enjoy some spice in books, but for the most part, like I'm not reading for that. So I do put a little spice warning on all of my reviews. Again, none. Self-explanatory, there is none. Mild is going to be if it is implied that there is a sex scene, like it's fade to black or something, that's mild, but you don't actually experience any of it. There might be like some flirting and some, you know, just all the things leading up to it, but they don't actually show anything or talk about it. Moderate is a sex scene is present, but it's not descriptive, you know, so it's just talking about like, yes, in the moment, this is what I'm thinking about, or, you know, what just like the emotional side of it without getting very graphic. Then explicit is explicit, using all the words, describing every single touch and gesture and action. It's all there. Speaking of my reviews, I have really loved using Fable and Goodreads. So when I started like reading a lot more, I got on Goodreads and Storygraph, and I liked Storygraph because it really easily categorized all of my data and it gave me analytics, how many books I read, how many pages I read, my most read genre, all that sort of stuff. It did it for me. It also showed me how many pages I read each day, which I really liked. But I used Goodreads to do my reviews and find books that I wanted to read and check on what my friends are reading, that sort of stuff. Now Fable has entered the chat and I am obsessed with Fable. It is by far my favorite of the 3 apps. I go to Fable for like all of my big reviews. I love the way that you're able to rate things on Fable because it has like the sliding scale and it prompts you to answer questions about like all these different things. Like it has a thing for spice level, it has emojis, like put the emoji for how this made you feel and like all this other stuff. So I feel like you can be more descriptive with your reviews on Fable and it's more structured to do so. I also really like the social aspect of Fable because on Goodreads you only see like the people that you're friends with or following, but on Fable it shows you a bunch of people who have similar book tastes to you. So I've actually been able to like find new people that I have, you know, things in common with. We both like the same books, we both like the same tropes, whatever it is, and connect with them that way, and then, you know, friend them, see their posts more often, all that sort of stuff. So I love Fable. I love it so much actually that I am subscribed to Fable Plus. You can set a book and reading and page goal and it shows you like with these cute little flowers how close you are to reaching those goals. Love it. And you can also do monthly and weekly goals, which I have not set, but you can. And then I just like the way that Fable is set up. Like I love all of the graphs that it does. Like it really has everything that Storygraph had and it's more user friendly and it's just cuter. Like it even gives me averages, the average number of books and the average number of days that I read each week. Like that's just so cool. I love Fable. It also does reading streaks, and that's another thing that I like. Every day you can get on it and just mark what book that you read. You don't even have to say how much you read because I used to do that to keep track of how many pages I read each day, but I stopped doing that because that was a lot of work. But it helps me to like stay consistent with my reading, and also it just helps me to remember to track that I did read because it sends me a little reminder at the end of the day like, oh, don't forget, you know, to mark your reading streak. So my longest reading streak was 52 days, and let's see, I think that was back in March. 52 days around the March time. Also, I thought this was so cool. A graph showing every day that you read. So it shows your best streak, every day that you read, and all the blue ones were days that you finished a book. Isn't that just so cool? And then of course, they have so many other reading insights. This is sounding like an ad, but I promise I'm not sponsored. I would love to be, but I'm not. And it shows you your rating. And then I like this one right here because it compares your ratings to like the average rating, so I can see what books I liked more than like the general consensus, or which books I did not connect with as much as everyone else. And it's just cool. I liked it a lot. So that is Fable. I use both Fable and Goodreads. Both are linked down below. If you are not connected with me on there, I would love for you to, because I'm on those apps every single day. Another thing that I wanted to talk about very briefly is my Kindle. I love the Kindle. I get library books through Libby, and I can read them on here because it's all connected. But then also Amazon, no. Well, I guess it is through Amazon, but it's Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is like $12 a month, I think, and you get access to hundreds of books, maybe thousands, I don't even know, a lot of books. And I like that because it lets me just kind of broaden my taste, I guess, and discover new books that I can read immediately for free. So in my mind, as long as I read one book a month from Kindle Unlimited, it's paying for itself, and I do. I think I read probably 2 or 3 books a month from Kindle Unlimited just because it's so convenient. It's on my Kindle. I love it. Also with my Kindle, I highly recommend, it sounds silly, but I love my Kindle page turner because I can just hook it up and then be completely under the covers and have my Kindle out and turn the page without my hand like falling asleep holding it or getting cold out of the covers. It's just very nice and very much a first world solution to a first world problem. I don't know. Anyway, I love it, and it's worth every penny. I really do enjoy it. The last thing I want to talk about is just like how I find time to read. Obviously, it's summer break right now. I'm a teacher, so I read all day, every day. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any other responsibilities. I can just read whenever I want. However, from August to May, I have a full-time job, and it requires a lot of mental and physical energy. And so when I get home from work, there are so many days that I'm like, I just don't have it in me to read. What I recommend, if you have a job like that, or you have a commute, audiobooks. Audiobooks are such a good way to still get your reading in, either while you're doing something else like driving, or I used to work in an office, so I would fly through audiobooks because it's like 8 hours a day. Most audiobooks are what, between 8 and 12 hours long anyway, so like I was getting through books fast because I would just listen while I was at work. It works. But now that I'm a teacher, obviously can't do that, but I do listen on my commute. And so I feel like previously I was getting about 40 to 45 minutes of listening done a day. So it was taking me about 2.5 weeks to finish a book, which I think is still pretty good. And it just gives me something to look forward to on my drive to and from work. I also like that as opposed to like listening to music or the radio or whatever, just because it's like a continuation. I don't know, I feel like I'm really making good use of my time when I'm listening to an audiobook. Also, if you're cleaning, if you're cooking, if you're doing anything, crafts like coloring or anything like that, crocheting, you can be listening to your audiobook. So that is my biggest tip for getting reading done even when you're busy. That is all that I have for you guys today. If you have any more questions about anything that I talked about or just things that you're curious about me, please let me know in the comments. I will answer them. Of course, I love talking to you guys. And make sure that you like this video if you did enjoy, and subscribe so that I can see you in the next one. Mwah. Bye.